the 2021 Virtual Business Conference, February 11th. Rod Heckelman. New programming for our new opportunities.
Rod Heckelman. Rod started his career in 1966, and he was with John Gardner's Tennis Ranch for 5 years. After that, he was teaching tennis. He became a head pro, director of tennis, and eventually a GM. He's written several books, and he's become one of our foremost experts on the business of tennis. And he's won awards as Manager of the Year for NorCal and for USPTA National. And I'm just delighted to have him here. He actually has presented for USPTA Southern in the past and been very, very well received. So I give you Rod Heckelman.
Thank you, Kevin. And I say in the top of this, which is true to form, Southern section is one of my favorite sections to talk to. I've had the pleasure of speaking to about maybe 60 or 70 lectures throughout the country. And I think, and I'm not saying this because I'm talking to you, I think that the Southern section is one of the best organized and best run sections around. Pat does a great job. Kevin's stepped in and done a great job. And they really have made an effort to help people who are not only part of the program, but getting into the program, feel comfortable and progress in every way they can in their occupation. That's a big factor. So let me get started here. We're going to be covering quite a few topics, and I'm going to do my very best to make it as clear as possible with each topic. But we're going to start off with these three major areas. The first is we're going to be talking about that it's a time for change. I refer to this time as the Renaissance of tennis. I've been talking to many pros throughout the country, and all of them are experiencing the same thing we're experiencing, which is a dramatic increase in lessons, participation in tennis, and just growth overall. In fact, many of the multi-fitness facilities where they have tennis as part of the venue, for a while there, you might remember tennis was put on the back shelf. Not anymore. Most of these large organizations that run multiple facilities with, again, many different types of venues are putting tennis at the front and are being thankful that it's there, because for a lot of places, you can only be outside and tennis is perfect. But I want to point out, you got to be ready for this explosion. You've got to be ready for this in a way that you can accommodate this new interest, not just in lessons, but in programming and in every aspect. And I go back to a long ways. I go back to late 60s, early 70s when there was a tennis boom, and it was phenomenal. Everybody got into it. Maybe it was Jimmy Connors or Chris Evert. Maybe it was the Riggs-King match. Who knows what it was? But we were not prepared. As an organization, we were not prepared for this great challenge and this onslaught of interest. We didn't have enough instructors. We didn't have quality instructors, but we definitely did not have programming. And that was a big factor. People would come to play tennis. Back east, they had contract court time. We didn't know how to organize as well as we could have. So it took us a while to adjust, and we may not have adjusted in time, and that could be one of the reasons why we had a little drop-off in tennis. We don't want to see that happen again. So I think we need to be really prepared, and you got to ask yourself, are you ready for what's coming? With that said, what does that mean? Are you ready? What is ready? I think that our business, as we take to the next step here, has to have a better foundation. And to have a better foundation for our business, we need to have a much more flexible plan. Tennis industry is one of the few industries, if you look at it, that has multiple types of ownerships. You have private clubs, you have membership-owned clubs, you have corporation clubs, you have nonprofit organizations, and of course you have community clubs. And they all have a different type of venue and a different type of offering. So if you say, this is how I'm going to run my business, I think you're going to be in trouble, because we really don't know. No experts know what's going to be like in 6 months, 1 year from now. So although you need to plan, you need to have your plans flexible so that you can adjust to those new needs that are going to take place. So you may have to have more family venues than you ever had before. You may have to have different types of instruction. We're not sure. But one thing you need to do is it needs to be flexible. There is no cookie cutter. No expert out there is going to say, this is how you should run your business. It's not going to happen because, like I said, a club in Seattle, indoors, a club in Phoenix, outdoors, that's publicly owned, a place in Denver that's owned by a businessman, completely different operations, completely different goals. So I think that's important to have a flexible plan, but start to plan generally so you're ready for it. Lastly, programming for the new world is going to change. There's a lot of differences. We know people are going to be working from home. We know they're going to be having different demands, but we have to see what the new venues are going to offer when it comes to competition and social. So we're going to restudy these three areas. Life after near death. Well, that's what it's like. We're coming rising of the phoenix. We got through all this time, and I can see we're starting to see some improvement all over the country, all over the world for that matter, and we're getting through it all. And it's just going to be a matter of time, and we're all going to be looking back at this and saying, that was a pretty terrible time, but now we're really making it happen. With that in general, what we've seen take place, some of it's going to stay. One of it that's going to stay is I have seen, and probably you have as well, a number of people that got into tennis for reasons we didn't really see coming. And that was not just being locked up, not just being but people looking at their lives at home and saying, you know, I think I could have a better quality life. I think I could learn to play guitar, not so I can be in a band, just so I can have something to do that I can be good at. Learn a new foreign language, not so I can live in another country, just so I can visit that country and be more comfortable. So we saw this trend towards people being more productive because they were locked down, they were inside, they had to interact, you know, with their family, and it meant for a different type of sense of learning. And I think that really, really hit tennis, because tennis has always been a sport. You know, I'm biased, obviously, about this, but tennis has always been a sport. It's kind of like an art. You can never stop getting better at it. You can never stop enjoying it. You can continue to feel, no matter how old you are or how athletic you are, you can continue to feel like there's a future for you. And it's going to be something that people look at and say, you know, I'd like to be able to hit a drop shot, or I'd like to be able to hit more spin. Something that's going to make them better at what they're doing. But more important, I'd like to improve the quality of my life by having something that's athletic. You know, we promoted for years how tennis can be played for life. And we've also promoted about how healthy it is for you to play tennis. But we didn't think about the psychology of the whole thing. And that was the psychology of a better quality life. If you, you know, this was a study done years ago. My dad actually was a neuropsychologist, took part in it. And it was a study that looked at how children developed in learning. And what they found out was that if you had your child develop the skill of a sport and did well, the skill of learning how to play an instrument and learning a language, mastering those three things, their lives were probably going to be pretty balanced, more so than the education they got. It allowed them to have the ability to learn how to learn. And that's a very important aspect. And that's what people are coming back to. They're rediscovering to learn how to learn. And in that, in turn, is helping the quality of their life. Competition, I think competition's it's going to stay there, but it's not going to be the forefront. We're going to lose the sense of needing to compete to be able to measure ourselves, to have ratings, to see if our wins and losses are going to be that important. It's still going to be there, don't get me wrong. But a lot of people are going to get into it by virtue of basically having the enjoyment of, again, just playing recreationally, meeting other people, having fun. But also, again, looking how well they're hitting their serve or how well they're returning serve, whatever shot they're trying to do. And then the measuring stick is going to change. So instead of ratings being a measuring stick always, or wins and losses, they're going to measure their enjoyment, their learning, their improvement. And I think tennis pros need to find ways of measuring that instead of competition. You want to be able to look at someone and say, yeah, you're a better player today because you can do this, and we're going to work on this. So we as tennis pros really need to find ways of measuring people in their game and their improvement. And the other aspect that we're seeing right now is families. Families are becoming gigantic and really becoming into the sport like we never saw before. I see every day families coming out on the courts. You see parents hitting with their kids. You see other kids playing together, and they're not playing competitively. They're just playing. And what you see with the families out there is they're learning how to play in ways that are, you know, for fun enjoyment, recreation, social. And I think that's going to be growing in the future more and more, because I think what people found out in the family situation, if you're stuck at home, same people all the time, you're going to get together with those people and find something common to do. And board games are nice, but after a while, they're boring. Board games become boring. Now you want to get out and play tennis. So this is what people are doing. They're getting out, they're playing tennis with their families, they're getting together, and basically learning how to enjoy their time as a family again, which is something that was lost. Tennis always provided that, but now it's coming back. In fact, if you think about it, and I say this, if you could name some sports where families can play together, you're going to find that they're almost all racket sports. It could be pickleball, it could be badminton, ping pong, whatever. For some reason, racket sports are just perfect for us to get our families together and play. And you see that constantly with those sports and having fun like that. So look for families to be the big next interest in our industry. With that in mind, you need to be aware and savvy to the fact that you, as the tennis pro at that club, are going to be the center of their tennis universe now. With large organizations, and I speak of the USTA, maybe UTR, or anybody else, have to pull back for many reasons. People are not going to be able to travel for a while. So you, as that person in that club, are now going to have all their focus. As I show in my picture below here, all of them are pointing at your star. And your star has to be able to answer and provide a lot of that information that they're looking for. So what is that information? Well, it's obviously how to learn how to play, but it's also how to learn how to get on courts, how to learn how to meet others, how to be able to practice. There's a whole bunch of things that you need to fill. But most of them, as a tennis pro, you're going to find at a club, is going to be basically finding it how they enjoy the sport. And that's going to take some discovery on your part with each individual person. You're not going to have some program that satisfies everybody, especially with families. But you can certainly discover as you talk to people what they're looking for. Because that's a very important part of the introduction you have with that person. What are their goals? Are they wanting to get in shape? Are they wanting to play competitively? Are they wanting to meet other people? You need to know that. But you, again, are the person that's in charge now. They're not going to be able to go to a lot of other locations. They're going to go to you as the tennis pro and say, give me the answers. I want to know what those answers are. Large organizations will still exist. They'll still be around. And you need to know how to work with them. But the fact is, they're not going to be there as much organizing events, leagues, and things as they were in the past, at least for a while. So you need to know how to work with these organizations to what they can provide, and it depends, again, on where you're located. Each location will have a different type of venue. Again, what happens in Memphis will be different than what happens in Atlanta, what happens in New Orleans will be different than, and so it goes. So you do have to find out how you can work with the local organizations and work well. When I say organizations, I'm not talking just tennis organizations. I'm including organizations, like the rec centers, the schools, anybody like that that you can interact with. And I think this is something that we have to reach out to and try to touch again. As an example, we had for years Safe and Sober Grad Night, which we put together back in, I think, 1988. And what it was, we donated our facility. So they had a place to go for the entire night to have a Safe and Sober Grad Night. We did that to 4 high schools. I think it was quite a lot of work, by the way. But it was something that kept us in touch with those communities. We also did a big deal for the Community Business Center. We did a program for the hospitals. We did a program for real estate companies. We did a lot of things with our local organizations and communities to stay in touch with them and to stay relevant. And also, of course, to attract memberships and retain memberships. We wanted to be part of that community as much as we could. We felt that in our area, we're small town sort of in some sense, that being part of the community was more valuable than advertising on some magazine or wherever. So we found that to be very helpful, and we continue to do that for years. But a year plus ago, that all went away. We didn't have the ability to organize events and do programs. So we're looking at how we can bring that back and bring that back within the parameters that are going to be allowed. And I think that's important to start to figure out if you're running a business or part of a tennis program. How are you going to get these organizations to come back? How are you going to get the schools to bring back their interest in your club for their tennis teams? How are you going to get back some of the local businesses that have suffered so much to come back and be part of it? One program we just did, and I'm passing this on to you, you may try it, is that we found out because of the financial hardships, many of our members would either go on hold or terminate the membership. They didn't know what was going on. They were apprehensive about being in a community situation or social situation. So they went away, and suddenly they started to come back little by little as things got better. So what about all those members that paid all the way through? How do you deal with those people and say, hey, you know what, you were loyal to us, but these people quit, want to come back? So we came up with a program called the Local Small Business Support Center, which is basically, we said, instead of paying a new initiation fee, it was very simple. You simply showed the receipts you used at your local businesses over the last couple months and a few months going forward, and that would go towards the initiation fee and sometimes dues. So we were able to reconnect with the community and become part of that. That was a very healthy program to put together, but more of that's going to happen down the road. You're going to have to find ways that you can get back those organizations and get back for that member, in some cases, the membership that you're going to need to grow. There are a lot of facilities out there that are hurting. Like I said, the fitness industry has just gotten clobbered. Some of it because, as we know, there's a lot more home programs people can do, and that's taken a hold. But I think in general, they're going to be struggling, especially the multi-fitness facilities where they had tennis. And they're going to need, and they're going to look towards tennis as being one that can reach back out and get back the community. For lessons, group lessons are going to take off. And I think they're going to take off for three reasons. One, of course, the demand. But secondly, the cost. It's going to be a situation where people are going to look at the cost. Private lessons are great, but if you can get into a group of 4 children, 4 boys, 4, whatever it takes, you're going to be better off. But this, too, is going to change format. If you're used to having people, get involved with one of your programs, you're going to have to look at your program and say, is it flexible enough to accommodate homeschooling? Is it flexible enough to accommodate the many different levels? I don't know about you, but I have been surprised. And again, I've been teaching since 1966. I've never seen such a surge of young people get into the sport. It's amazing. But here's where I see something that I never thought I would see again. I'm seeing 13, 14, 15-year-old girls who've never played tennis want to play tennis. I saw it in 8, 9, 10, 11. But, teenagers like that, young teenagers, they just didn't go to tennis. Now they're getting in, and it's a little contagious. Suddenly they're all getting in, and they're all wanting to play tennis. And it's a whole different organization of the clinics and programs, getting them to play together, getting them to hit. They're learning. They're beginners, and it's difficult when you've got beginners, what they're going to do together socially and play tennis at the same time. So that's been a challenge for us in our group clinics. So we started doing what we call flex clinics that focus and allow drop-ins. You still have to reserve, but we have drop-in clinics now. We didn't ever have that before because that was hard to manage. Drop-ins, they pay per session, and it allows them to come and go because people's lives are not in control as they'd like them to be. And for them to lock into something and say, this is what I'm going to do every Tuesday at 3:30 can be a little difficult for these people. So the flex clinics have grown pretty well for that age group. The ones that are dependent upon their parents bringing them there, the 8, 9, and 10, those can pretty much get locked in. But the other ones will have maybe soccer practice if they can do it or something else. And so the flex clinics was a perfect fit when we made that change. We also, and I've done it for years, do I don't do weekly, we did monthly free clinics. Now, I did that since the day I started working at Mount Tam back in 77, March of 77. I did that because I wanted to create a personal rapport with my members. I didn't want them to feel that they were going to have to pay to be able to know how I teach and what I did. So I would do a monthly free clinic. I'd have sometimes 3, sometimes 20. So I would find a topic as I started the clinic, never do it ahead of time. If I had a ton of people, I could work with, how to toss on a serve. If I had a few people, I could work on footwork and movement and drills. So I made it very adjustable in accordance to what I might get. And since I had never really knew until the day before at best, I had to have that flexibility. And so what I did with the free clinics is I made sure that people knew how I taught, what my goals were, but realized that there was value in their membership, value in being part of a program. Yes, there were few, and there always is, that would just take the free clinics, never take lessons afterwards. But that's fine. You get those people, and they actually usually become very loyal members. But a lot of them transferred into taking lessons and group lessons where they paid for it. So it was a great way to set up an introduction to get to know people, and also a segue to create a clientele. And I think free clinics are something that every club should have at some point in time. And again, they don't have to be about instruction. They could be free clinics on strategy of some type, free clinics to know how to play in leagues, free clinics to know how to meet other people, free clinics to know the rules of tennis, whatever it takes. So it allows you to get out there and interact with these people. We're also going to need to develop a whole other venue for practicing. I don't think we practiced enough over the prior years. When we got into a lot of competition, especially league play, it's enjoyable. And if you watch most people, their warm-up consists of about 15 hits, a few serves, and let's play. Spin the racket. And so what's happening now is I think we're going to see a return to practice. And if I can push one of my books, is the reason I wrote 250 Ways to Play Tennis. It's actually 250 ways to practice tennis where it's enjoyable. Because I think one of the reasons people don't practice.
Hello. It's all right.
Okay. One of the reasons people don't practice is because it's boring. I mean, if you're just hitting the ball back and forth, it can be boring. So what happens is that I created this whole idea of, can't we make practice more fun through some degree of competition? So, for instance, I would have people play. I have a young girl that I worked with for years that I wanted to have serve and volley. So I had her do a drill where if she made the first serve and the first volley, she couldn't lose the point. If she ended up losing the point, it'd just be replayed. Or I had a drill where they, had to keep the ball a certain distance. I'm sure you know a lot of games that can be played, but basically what I did was I realized that if you could change the rules or the way people played, the demands, they could have a good practice out of it. I had one person who was just never going to be steady. Never could. So I had a game where he had to hit the ball at least 5 times before he could win and lose the point. So you can find different ways to practice that's enjoyable. I mean, there's a lot of them. I spent 14 years on, just collecting ideas, trying to figure out what would be best. And it reached out to all different ideas. For instance, I had issues with. Hello, I get people talking here. I'll keep going. I had issues where I had people complain about, people cheating or something because they played in the leagues. And so I came up with this drill, and I said, let's find out how you can deal with it better. Let's play a tiebreaker, and each person or team can make one bad call during the tiebreaker. It was actually quite fun and humorous because it created so much of an interest in it. But it also dealt with how you handle these situations. And it proved to be a fun game. People played it. I had another drill that we used to do because people couldn't hold serve or break serve. So it was a common drill. Many of you use it where in order to win a point, it's called the volleyball drill. So in order to win a point, you have to be serving. So to be able to get the right to serve, you had to win 2 points in a row, and then you could serve. So sometimes you could win every other point and lose 21-0 if you played to 21. So there's essentially so many different ways to practice that people can have fun and not have to necessarily travel and play. And this way, they'll be, again, focusing on what we talked about earlier, becoming better, improving. So look at these ways of practicing and find something that's entertaining. As I mentioned, there's so many different ways if you look at someone. And if you find someone who has a flaw in their game, you might find a practice that helps focus on that flaw. I had one girl that I worked with that got quite good. Her biggest problem, every time she played someone who hit high moon balls, she backed up. So I simply drew a line behind her and said, if you back up behind the line, you lose the point. So she had to take the ball on the rise. And she played and played and played. 3 months later, she never backed up again. So again, practice for improvement, practice for fun, practice for entertainment, all good stuff. I also find that bringing a ball machine into this era is really important. We have a program at the club where people pay a one-time fee of $25. We do that not to show them how to use it, but also to show them how best to safely use the machine. That's one of my bird calls, by the way. And I think this is very important because people, they can't find someone to play with. They book the ball machine. We do 45-minute times, give people about 15 minutes or 10 minutes to to pick up the balls. It's plenty enough time. But the ball machine really gets a lot of work. Same with backboards, rebound boards. Backboards, we all grew up with backboards. They're a wonderful practice tool. And they've always proved to be something you can do by yourself anytime, anywhere, whether it be good or indoors if you have that. And they allow you to practice on things that you would never practice anyplace else, consistency of ball, consistency of preparation, whatever it takes. I have rally centers. Yes, they're called rally centers. With the kids, they have quotas. So what happens is that they go down to court 13 or court 8 outside, and they see how many balls they can hit in a row. We used to do this years ago. It was a big deal at the tennis ranch, and some of the people took that up very seriously. I think it was Hagee and Kavanaugh, the girls, I think were 11, had one point that lasted over an hour. God knows how many balls they had, something over 1,100. But they used to do that all the time, see how many balls they could hit in a row, and then they would record it. So one week they got up to 10, next week they got up to 15, next week again, a practice that was entertaining and something that gave them direction without necessarily you having to supervise. So that was great. I also have tossing aids because I find, as you probably have discovered, if someone doesn't have a good toss on the serve, it's very hard to get them to master serve. So I put tossing aids all over the place. I actually have on one court, there was the way it was built, there was a fence, and I put on the fence a little stick that came out, and from it I took a tennis can. They're not cans anymore, but I call them cans. Tennis can, hung it downward so the hole's at the bottom, and then I put little marks where their feet should be. And they stand there underneath it, and they practice going through the serve and see if they can make the ball go up into that can. If you're good, you can do it 1 out of 50 times. If you're great, you can do it maybe 1 out of 25 times. But it's a great practice, and the kids get addicted to it. I was kind of surprised. It's adjustable, by the way. Height, you can adjust it up and down. And the ones who get addicted to it and really find it sort of challenging, sort of like one of those events at a carnival, throwing the coin in the cups or whatever. Their toss gets amazing. By the way, when I teach the toss, I always have them practice the swing at the same time, not just the toss by itself, so they get that feeling of using both sides of the body simultaneously. But they get addicted to this thing, and their serves get so good so quickly because they mastered the toss. But I know you have some ideas, and you're going to come up with some other practice ideas that are going to be perfect. So for your facility. So keep your mind open and keep looking for it. Listen, talk to other pros, find out what works, and integrate it into your own club venue. Lastly, in this page, I talk about people working from home and how that's going to change the market. I think there's 3 things that are going to happen that are going to be key. You may find some ways to do some drills at home and what have you. But unlike the fitness industry, which had home venues coming up, Peloton, Mirror, what have you, tennis isn't going to do that. But they're still going to be working from home. How does that change? First, they're going to come during the day. People that used to come after work, they're not going to come after work. They're going to come at noon. They're going to come at the middle of the day. So think about having activities you normally had for that working group be applied to daytime. Maybe they were there on weekends. Now they're going to come during the day. So you need to redo your thinking on organizing programs. Maybe you have a midday challenge court program where people come. It's like King of the Mountain. If you win, you get to stay on for a second set. You lose, you get off. If you sign up, you get a new partner. Those are great ways of accommodating this change. The second thing that's going to happen is spontaneous play, which is why I like the challenge courts. You're going to have people who are working at home and go, yeah, I think I'll go down and play tennis. Working at home means eliminating a lot of things. One of them is the commute. Secondly, which is very important, is your timing. So if you do have a food service, get the food service ready because the food service for lunches are going to increase dramatically. We have a cafe that I actually just started up called La Mesa, which specializes in Mediterranean organic healthy food. And they only started 2 months ago. And I did that because our own personal cafe was getting nothing. So these fellows needed a rent-free location, which they got from us. We support them a little bit. And they did takeout. It's just going box office. It's high quality food, which helps a lot. But again, it's all these people working at home saying, I need lunch. I'll go to the club and get it. Or I'll have them pick it up, whatever it takes. DoorDash and the others that can provide it. That's a big factor now. And I think working from home is going to make that change take place. So you got families coming back to tennis. I mentioned this is a big deal. I think this is going to change the entire market we have. Families are finding tennis like they did years ago. It's an old familiar face. They were stuck in a place, like I said, 24 hours a day, and it motivated something to do in common. We know that. Tennis was right there for them. And what programs you have in place for your families, I'm sure varies from club to club. But what I'm seeing, and I mentioned it earlier on, I'm seeing a lot of the parents playing with their children. So I restructured my lessons, and I asked my pro staff to do the same. And if the parent wants, they can take the lesson with the child. So if I have a 9-year-old that's learning, and I see the parent plays a little tennis or whatever, I'll say, why don't you come and see how we're instructing that child, and you can do the same. So now when that child goes home or goes out together with that parent, they have a common person. Essentially, you're creating an assistant in the parent. And you're also, again, creating retention for your club and retention for memberships. Because once you show that parent that this is a package program, it's not just the child, it's the whole family involved. Now you have somebody that's saying, hey, I like what they're providing for me. I like that service. I like that consistency. And I'll have something ongoing. And I think that's a very important part of working with families. They want to know that there's something that's going to be ongoing. It doesn't have to be that structured, but they don't want to sign up and then say, well, I don't know what's going to happen in 3 months. So if you had a program that says we have a fall, summer, I would put that program out there way out ahead of time so they could see there's something for them to go, because they're going to come to you for all directions. You're the one driving the bus now. You're the ones that provide the direction and the answers for everybody. So you need to have a forecast that goes way off down the road and shows that, okay, we're going to do this in the fall. We're going to do this in the winter. We're going to do this when there's school. So they really have an understanding this is an ongoing program. You're going to discover that these people are going to be looking for the best thing they can find for their children. You have to be that best thing. And that's important for you to understand. Don't assume anything. Don't assume what you did in the past is going to work, because we don't know. There's a saying about assumption, and we won't go into that whole line, but the problem is that we lock in after many years, and a lot of us have taught for years, we lock into the way we do things, and we assume that must be right. And I think that has to be thrown out. As I said earlier, we have to be more flexible. And we have to provide now this full package, which is going to include the organization, the programming way out ahead of time, the scheduling, the event itself, and even the social venue. So what happens when you get into a group, let's say, it's very popular, by the way, a family night. How do I set up a family night? Let's say I have a family that has a boy who's 12 that plays, a girl who's 8 that's learning to play. Both parents started into tennis. They play a little bit, like so many parents. They used to play years ago, and now they're getting back into it. That's great. So I have these people having this desire to get out together, but they have a 5-year-old, doesn't want to play, doesn't play. What am I doing? I got to have the whole family there, or I have to provide child service of some type, which is a pain. So maybe I have a movie night for these people as well. So the little one can watch, some fun little kids movie while the others are playing. And then I have a mix and match so the parents can play with each other and the kids can play with each other. And then, of course, I'm going to have something more than just hors d'oeuvres. I may have pizza, whatever it takes. I'm looking at organizing for families for the big picture, not just come down, take clinics, see you later. Not just come down and we're going to get together with another club and we're going to play. No, this has got to be something that provides everything. And you're going to need to do some investigating. I don't know what that is for everyone because, as I mentioned at the beginning, it could be different for a country club. It could be different for a corporation club. But I think in general, the new family offerings have to be complete. They can't be just partial. They have to provide everything in many cases. Not all, but in many cases. And now you have the other half of that. Or not maybe half, but the other segment. You got parents that are very busy, involved with their business, their corporation, whatever. And their kids now are going to be dropped off and left with you to take care of. And you're going to need to find a way of taking care of them that lasts more than just 1 hour. So you're going to find that your summer camps may become fall camps, winter camps, spring camps, where you have something where they have a lesson, then they go off and they play, and maybe then they have something else they can do that's fun and entertaining at that period of time. This is where people are going, and they need to have that because they are looking to have support for their families, and this would be a phenomenal support. And once again, getting back to what I say as an owner manager, I want my pros, this is really important to understand, to work towards what's ever going to both attract members and retain members. I want them part of what I do as a group. I don't want them coming in, working independently, leaving, having their own agenda. I want them being part of what's going to make the whole package work. That's important to me. And I'm going to tell you this right now. There's like 6 or 7 clubs in, not Marin, but in NorCal Bay Area that are looking for pros. And so far have not found what they wanted, because what they found were pros who were really good coaches and teachers. And they don't want that. They want pros who provide the entire package for the family. That's going to be a trend that continues for some time. Like I said, programming will become a universal language. People will start to realize that if I'm talking to someone in fitness, if I'm talking to someone in tennis, if I'm talking to someone in swimming, I'm going to have a universal language at that club. And that is, again, retention, usage, and how they can enjoy the club. I'm going to take advantage of what I have already in my pocket. And that's starting off with what we're doing right now. That's USPTA. We can't travel right now. And I can tell you, as a person who traveled a lot, I can't wait to travel. And when I travel, I'm going to start taking off every place and anywhere I can go that I haven't seen before. I love it. I love traveling more than anything else. And I know many other people love traveling, especially those who play tennis. And they love to travel and play tennis. And one of the things I've taken advantage of, and I could give a couple examples of the southern section. I think it was Zeta and Carol Burnham that I turned in the direction of Pat Whitworth when they moved to Atlanta. And they really found that advantageous and helpful. And he was great. And they thought of the most of him. And I think as a USPTA member, contacting people who are either moving or traveling or going elsewhere and showing that you're part of a bigger picture is a great, great asset. We have to take advantage of that more. So when someone says, yeah, we're going over to Hawaii, we should know people in Hawaii and where they should go and who they can talk to. If they're going to Phoenix or they're going to Denver, wherever they're going, we should be contacting the USPTA pros and saying, hey, they're going to be out there. How can they best use tennis there? How can they best enjoy Denver or Phoenix? One area that many of our people would go to is Palm Springs, because of obviously the big tournament that took place there in February, March, but also in general to get away from the colder weather that we normally have and get down to where they can be in great weather. And I knew 5 or 6 pros I turned them on to, and it was fantastic. They always came back saying to me, boy, that was great. You did that for us. It really made our vacation a package and a whole. And it gave me value. And again, it gave that pro income. So we need to really take advantage of our associates and get a hold of them and share that as much as possible. I don't think we do enough of that, and I'm just saying this is going to be very important because it's going to come back strong when it does come back. Typically, when there are hard times, pandemic is obviously a hard time, or depressions and things of that nature. There's usually a bit of like I said, a renaissance afterwards. After the last pandemic of 1918, around there, you had the Roaring '20s. People really came back and got into the thing they missed the most. By nature, we're social people. By nature, we love to be interactive with others. So I think we're going to return to that with strength, and that's going to be a strong part of our industry. And we're sitting in the captain's seat for that. I'm telling you right now, we are sitting pretty. This business, this tennis business, is going to just boom. We got to be ready for that. Technology is going to be also used in a different way. I have mixed emotions about technology, and let me bring that out first before I say anything else. I think technology is wonderful, but there's nothing better than a handshake. I think technology allows you to be more efficient, but it also can distance you. We can make a lot of assumptions by virtue of technology, and I want to be careful about that. Let me give you an example. A couple of years back, there were a lot of new technology systems that came in and did videos, analysis, data, and I thought it was fantastic. But what I also discovered, from my membership at least, most of the recreational players didn't care for it. Great for the juniors, great for the college players, great for the pros. Having that data was wonderful. But most of my recreational players would did it once and go, hey, that's it. I saw myself. I'll see myself again next year. Or they would take it and they would see, yeah, I hit my forehand late. I knew that. Why? Well, you don't start correctly. You don't set up your footwork right, whatever. And they would sit there and say, that's great, but I knew that too. So what good is this to me? And so I hit forehands cross-court more. Who cares? They just really weren't into it that much. So which is, by the way, the bulk of our industry, those people. So the technology has to be used in a little different way. And I'm going to get to that in a second, because I think we could do something with it that's very important. The second thing you need to know about technology is that it can both make you more capable of reaching people, but it also can take away being unique. Let me give you an example. You live in a town, it's 200,000 people. You have a club. This is years ago up there in the Northwest. You have your membership, and you decide you want to promote a program. So you reach out to your membership, you called, you did whatever you had to many years ago, and you reached out and touched your membership, and you got their attention. Technology comes around, you're able to reach all 200,000. So you start to reach out and reach all 200,000 people in that community. You go, great, now I've got all these new source. Well, guess what? Those other 5 clubs that were located in that town also can reach all 200,000, of which many were your members. So now you have a venue of competition you never had before, and you don't recognize it. So people begin to shop and compare. And when that comes around, you are both unique and not unique. And you have to understand that as you run your business. You have to realize, I have to be able to keep up with the Joneses, but I also have to have some common universal language and programming with them. It creates an unbelievably different sort of situation for us to deal with. We have to be common, but yet we are competing to some degree. Not always, but to some degree, be it as a teachers, be it as a business. So we have to continue to have that balance understood through technology. And technology is something that transitions constantly. So you have to keep up with it constantly. You can't just touch on it. We had the issue in our area of having to create reservation-only system. We also had an issue where we had 13 courts, 8 outdoor, 5 indoor, that suddenly became only 5 courts for 4 months out of the year. What would take place is people would dominate the phone calls or the emails to get those indoor courts. It didn't work. I discovered that a local museum, it was a museum, had an art show that they would do, and they had members that were supporters of it. And the members could book ahead, and they completely dominated the reservation system. They had priority. So they created, knowing this, a lottery system for reservations. So if someone dominated, the next day, and they went to go out, they go into a lottery, and if they got their request that first time, they were lowered in the lottery, and they got pushed down. So it made natural disbursement, and that saved the headaches of having someone take calls at 8 o'clock in the morning saying, I'm sorry, we're booked, what have you. So it's very, very difficult to control reservations and know it was there. But also what I had to do was take care of tracking. So now people were tracked. I knew when they were here, when they weren't here. And so as an example, one of our teachers had someone come to the class and say, my son tested positive. Within 15 minutes, we were able to tell everybody we interacted with that took place. And it was done so efficiently and so well, people were blown away, so much so that the county called us up and said, we'd like to use, it's called My Club Lives, by the way. We'd like to use your software to book the vaccinations because it reaches out and does it so fast. We also added to that the venues of chat. So David would get a court for 3 o'clock on Friday, and his partner says, I can't play. And he could go to the chat, find someone to play with. And so it's been a great software. I'm sure there's other out there, but I just thought I'd pass this on. But it's been a great software to use. It's completely flexible, and what's best about it, it's really inexpensive. So what happens, it did all the booking for us. You can do lessons, you can do ball machine courts. We actually have it for the swimming, lap swimming. We have it for the gym so people can book time so we can do natural distancing. And like I said, it did all the tracking we needed. It checks in automatically. You simply hold up your phone to it. It'll automatically check you in, so you don't have to go to the front desk. Again, it eliminated a lot of the contact, and you're welcome to call. Or I don't even have the phone number of that, but if you go online, look up My Club Lives, there's a fellow by the name of Brian Baker, who invented this, and he'd be talking to you in a short time, and you'd be having a great chance to use that new software. And if it works for you, it works for you. He's been actually providing it free for a lot of clubs because it's so easy to install. It downloads the database. You don't have to do anything different from what you had before. So I know I'm kind of pushing that a little bit, but it solves so many problems for us. And I thought that was unique. So I'm using it as an example how technology can be really a great problem solver, but it should not be a distance maker, meaning it does for you instead of what you should be doing. I think that's the biggest mistake of technology. I, for instance, don't care to have something in my house that I have to talk to turn on the lights. That just bothers me. I think I can just walk the 5 feet, hit the switch. So it's sort of a personal point of view. But on the flip side, with my car, having automatic backup camera, having parking guides, I don't think I could drive a car that didn't have it. So some technology really works well, and you can use other technology, I think, in our sport. Have to be careful about it. I think that gets back to the very final thing I have here, which is about customer satisfaction. I've always said this: it's not a goal; it's a standard. We all are great about that. I can tell you, I've always been so proud of our organization, but more proud of the people that I'm affiliated with. I've never met a pro that I didn't say, I think guy's really got his act together. I know that sounds crazy, or at least trying to get his act together. And that's with the USPTA. Maybe that's because those are the type of people that come to these conferences and come to these meetings. But we've got a real quality group of people, and the younger people coming up are phenomenal. And I'm really proud of that. And I think you do yourself well. And I think that the thing now that we're at a point of turning, and we need to start to ask ourselves, are we really capable of handling this new surge? Are we really capable of creating new programming? And are we capable of really making tennis, which is getting a big kickstart, continue to grow and move forward? As I mentioned, there's no cookie cutter solutions. And if you ask yourself that question, hopefully I gave you a few answers, but I think that you have to start by just asking the questions and saying to yourself, you know what, am I ready? Do I have the answers? And am I going to provide for my clients the best tennis environment I possibly can? If you keep asking yourself that question, I think you're going to be in the right spot over the next coming year and a couple of years after that and farther down the road. We are a growing organization, not just in numbers, but in knowledge. And I think as long as we keep that through the years, I go back to my last closing statement here. When I was 16 or 17, I asked John Gardner, I said, what would it take to be the best tennis pro in the world, teaching pro? And he said, never stop learning, always study, and get used to working 7 days a week. And I'll tell you, friend, Ben, that has been my thing. I work 7 days a week. I don't work long days, but I work 7 days a week. And I really keep at the whole idea of continue to learn, continue to find out ways I can do my job better or teach better. And I'm telling you right now, I will teach to the day I drop. I love teaching. Management, a little tougher ball game, but I'll do that for as long as I can do that and be effective and continue to learn. So I'm going to conclude here in time and let the next person come on. Pat, are you still there?
Yes, of course I am here. And this would be the point, if anybody has a question or to Rod, that we could put it in the chat, type it in, and we can get Rod to expand on this.
Pat, if you don't, there would be more.
Rod, but,
Pat, if they want, they can basically just be comfortable emailing me on any of this stuff. That's okay too. I have no problem with that. It's somewhat difficult to do over a chat thing like this, and it's awkward and cumbersome. So if they want to email me, provide my email, and they're welcome to email me at the club, and I'll get back to them with whatever I can.
Okay. I can include your email to everybody as I send out a note tomorrow for the Friday program, so that'll be good.
Okay.
Kevin, you have Any questions for Mr. Rod?
Well, Rod, that was a terrific presentation. There's a lot to take away from it. One thing for me is I wonder your thoughts on buy-in from the director of tennis or from the head pro. I mean, it's one thing to say to some of your staff pros, hey, you need to offer more family clinics, but it's something quite different to actually expect, say, the head pro or director to be out there and actively participating as well and walking the walk. I mean, what are your thoughts on that aspect of it?
Kevin, been down that road, and I think I have a solution. That is that what I did was I created at my club a reward system. I think telling people what to do and how to do it like that, I don't like managing that way. I like them to be part of the game. So my pros get a reward. If you bring in a new member to the club, you get a piece of their dues going forward. And so what happens, a guy that's, and my pros don't leave. They literally don't leave because you lose that when you leave. So I have pros that have been there 35, 40, 50 years because they're making a retirement money off of that. You bring in 50 members and you're getting maybe $5 a head. That's still a lot of money on a monthly basis.
Wow.
And so if you get them to be part of this, of the action, and a lot of clubs won't do this, but more clubs are realizing if you want people to, like you said, invest, be part of it, you got to reward them for it, and you got to make them part of the whole situation. So essentially, empowering them with a sense of ownership solves that problem.
Great, thank you.
You got it.
We have a question from Mark McMahon, and he's asking, what is the #1 skill you see missing in today's professionals?
I would say that, again, what I mentioned earlier, the ability to, I'm going to use the word, kind of schmooze with the members and interact with them and get them to feel that when they come to the club, there's somebody there who really cares and likes them because they are in that, of that nature. And then they, of course, then they organize programs. I have a fellow who moved here from Bangladesh, a hell of a player, probably one of the top players in the country, Shibo Lal. He brings in 20 to 25 new members every year easily, brings in people constantly. He's always helping them find somebody to play with. He's interacting. Yes, running programs important, but getting people face to face and saying, hey, how you doing? You playing today? How's your forehand doing? That type of stuff is really important for pros to do. And it may not be sometimes natural for some, but it's not that difficult because if you teach, you generally like people. So I think the key thing for pros to develop is a genuine like for people and their members and treat them like that. They're friends. You don't have to have dinner with them, but you can certainly enjoy their company and show that you enjoy their company when they come to the club.
That's good.
But you know, Pat, that's what I was saying about the USPTA pros. I find that with a lot of them. They're really friendly people. They're really, they're really great about interacting. So it's something that's there. Just make sure you realize how important it is.